right. Good afternoon, all, and thank you for joining us today for our Access to Capital webinar for seafood businesses, brought to you by New York Sea Grant in partnership with Cornell Cooperative Extension of Suffolk County and the Small Business Development Center at Stony Brook. My name is Mike Saramella. I'm the Seafood Safety and Technology Specialist with New York Sea Grant, and I'm joined by three colleagues who you'll also be hearing from today, including Kristen Gerbino, Fisheries Specialist with CCE Suffolk, Barry Udelson, New York Sea Grant Aquaculture Specialist, and Brenda Zhang, a New York State Advanced Certified Business Advisor with the Small Business Development Center at Stony Brook. As part of our 2024 New York Seafood Summit, New York Sea Grant and CCE drafted a post-event report highlighting the challenges and opportunities discussed. One of the main challenges that was raised repeatedly was the lack of funding to support New York seafood businesses. We also discussed opportunities for funding that would be available to such businesses soon. In order to assist in addressing this challenge and prepare businesses for the new grant opportunities that will be available through New York State, we decided to put together this webinar. Throughout today's session, we will provide general information on writing grants, as well as other opportunities for supporting and growing your business through loans. We'll start with a review of some of the key terms and languages you'll see used regularly in grants, followed by a general overview of the grant writing and submission process. We'll then dive a little deeper to discuss best practices, tips, and tricks for writing competitive grants to hopefully increase your chances of receiving funding. After that, we'll introduce you to a variety of grant opportunities that may be relevant to New York seafood businesses before transitioning into business loans and business services provided through the state's small business development centers. Let's start with funding notice terminology. When funders are looking to solicit applications for various grant opportunities, they'll put out a call. Depending on the funder, the name or terminology they use for this call may vary. Some common names include a NOFO, or a Notice of Funding Opportunity, an RFP or Request for Proposals, or an RFA, Request for Applications. These are helpful terms to know when searching for new funding opportunities. I'll also note now that throughout the presentation today, I will refer to the entity that is awarding or distributing the grant funds as the funder. Another important term commonly used in grants is match or cost share. Many funders require that applicants secure a proportion of the funds needed for a project through other sources. For example, if the funder requires 50% or 2-to-1 match or cost share, then for every $100 you request through that grant, you must contribute $50 in funds from another source. Each funder will dictate what sources are eligible and count towards the match or cost share. For example, on most federal grants, they require match or cost share come from non-federal sources. In some cases, in-kind services can be used to meet the match requirements. In-kind services can include things like the salary associated with staff time that is not requested in the grant but will be necessary to complete the project, waived rental or user fees associated with facilities, software, or tools that are used to complete the project, or even donations. Keep in mind that when using in-kind services as match or cost share, you will likely need to provide the funder with proof that those services were provided or those funds were received. Some other terms to know include indirect costs, or IDC, which include overhead or administrative expenses associated with a grant. Some examples of indirect costs can include facility maintenance and utilities, costs associated with grant funds management, and administrative support costs. IDC is commonly charged by institutions, and rates are often negotiated between institutions and funders. While good to be familiar with this terminology, the IDC may not be relevant to all entities, and some grants do not allow IDC in the budget. The next term we want to introduce is a no-cost extension, or NCE. This is the term for extending the deadline to utilize the awarded funds without cost or penalty. When applying for funds, they are awarded with a specific end date for that project. NCEs are commonly used when challenges to the project timeline occur and more time is needed to spend down the awarded funds than originally anticipated and specified in that proposal. An NCE must be officially requested and approved by the funder, so be sure to reach out well in advance of the project end date to request and inquire about the process for getting an NCE approved. You will need to provide justification as to why this extension is necessary. Lastly, I want to introduce the letter of intent. This is a letter that some funders request in advance of the full proposal deadline that indicates your intent to apply for the funds, right? And includes a brief description of the project, scope, and budget. The purchase of the LOI will vary depending on the funder, and we'll explore this further when we dive deeper into the grant writing process. The last terms I would like to discuss today are grants versus loans, highlighting the key differences between the two. A grant is money awarded to a company or organization to support a specific project or effort related to the grant's purpose. While grants are often require additional funds be expended on the projects, grants do not need to be repaid. However, they will have strict guidelines for how those funds can be spent and what they can be used for. A loan, on the other hand, is money that is lent to an individual or an entity with the expectation that those funds will be repaid, typically with interest. Loans are often more flexible with how the money is used, with fewer restrictions. Brenda from the Small Business Development Center at Stony Brook will provide more information on loans later. Now I'll pass the screen to Kristen Gervino with CCE Suffolk to give an overview of the grant writing process.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kristen Gerbino. I'm a fisheries specialist here at Cornell Cooperative Extension's fisheries program within the Marine program. And our program is fully grant funded, so we are very well versed in the grant process. So I'm going to give you a general overview and introduce some of the key steps in this process. Okay, so the first step in the grant process is identifying the grant that you might be interested in applying for. There will be a request for a proposal, notice of funding opportunity, or the request for application that comes out for a variety of different grants. And one way that you can find out where to apply for some grants, I would say the Suffolk County Agriculture and Fishing newsletter is a great resource for that. Some of the fishery management councils send out newsletters that have notices of some of the grants. And there's also grants.gov when you can sign up for emails to get notices and updates when grants are coming out. So identifying a grant that you might be that might be relative to what you are looking to do is the first step. So usually the first step in the process, once you do identify a grant that may be of interest and that might be feasible for you, is the letter of intent. Some proposals require this letter of intent, and you submit a letter indicating what you are applying for, briefly outlining the project and the budget. Some do not require a letter of intent, but it's always really important to look through the details of that request for a proposal and see if they do. This letter of intent is often a placeholder for the funding agency to see how many entities might be interested and eligible for submission. And in this case, you wouldn't get any follow-up or feedback based on it, but in some cases you do. The funding agency might say that this is a project suitable for going forward. And it's nice to know before you put in the effort of a full proposal, if the project is feasible and appropriate for the funding agency. So if you do get the go-ahead, by all means, yep, it's time to go ahead and submit the proposal. Some also, in addition to the letter of intent, some funding agencies also accept and require a pre-proposal, which is about 2 pages of general project scope and budget. And usually when you do a pre-proposal, then you do get a little bit of, feedback or some notice that they are requesting that you do go ahead with the full proposal, which is really time saving and important, because why waste the energy on a full proposal if you don't have to? Okay, next step is the submission and review. And this process varies greatly by the funder. Some of the proposals are 5 pages, some might be 20 pages, and they all require very different formats and content, but it's important to really make sure that you pay very good attention to what exactly is required, because often they will just be disregarded if you don't follow all the rules, like 100%. So From there, from the submission process, there will be a thorough review process that will include probably at least 2 rounds of internal review and external review with experts in the field. Oftentimes, the review criteria will be within the request for proposals. So you want to make sure that you're really adhering to that. There's also other processes other considerations such as the amount of funding that you're requesting, the demographics of the audience, the geography, the area of the project. These are sometimes outlined in the RFP when targeting specific populations or demographics, or staying within a funding range is really important. So this will all undergo a very strict review process. And like I said, you want to really pay attention to the details of everything that is required of you. Next. Okay, so hopefully you get to the point of the funding notification and you are notified that yes, your grant has been recommended for funding. So that's a great accomplishment because it's not easy to do all of this work. Hopefully the comments are positive, but also if you find out that you don't receive funding for the project, it's an opportunity to learn how to make it better for next time. Usually there are reviewer comments, and oftentimes we're not funded for a project first time we give it a try, but we do take those reviewer comments into consideration and then fix the project, amend the project, do whatever we need to do to make it satisfy the reviewer recommendations, which is really important and helpful. And then if you do get accepted for funding, there are very different processes for the final process and the requirements. So it's important you can work with the funder to make sure they have all the paperwork they needed. Sometimes the budget needs to be modified in order to get it exactly where it needs to be. And then just one last thing that I want to say before we move on is Cornell Sea Grant. We have a lot of experience in this field. And if the whole grant application process seems daunting, I think we've really oversimplified it here just to kind of give you guys a general overview because it is a pretty detailed process for sure. But we are happy to partner with some of you out there, fishing entities and businesses, and we can help support you on the process or partner on proposal application. So we're happy to be a resource and a partner in any of these situations.
Great.
That's it. I'm going to pass it on from here. Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. All right, so Kristen just reviewed the general process for grant submission. Now we'll dive deeper into the process and provide general best practices, tips, and tricks for identifying appropriate grant opportunities, developing proposals, and then submitting them to funders. The first step in getting grants is identifying appropriate grant opportunities, as Kristen mentioned. You start by searching for the NOFOs, RFAs, or RFPs and reviewing the grant purpose and scope. The NOFO, RFA, or RFP will contain all the necessary information that helps you determine if that opportunity is appropriate for you and your business or organization. Once you've confirmed that the grant focus is related to your business, organization, or project, it's important to confirm that you're an eligible applicant. Some grants have restrictions on who can actually apply. For example, some don't allow individuals to apply, while others might be restricted to not-for-profit organizations and institutions. If you are eligible, you should also consider the minimum and maximum award requests allowed. You want to make sure that the amount of money you can request is appropriate to support the project you're looking to fund. You'll also need to confirm that the expenses you're looking to include in your budget are allowable. Remember that grants are very strict about what you can and can't use the award funds for. So for example, most federal grants don't allow for the purchase of equipment and building infrastructure. Lastly, you should look at the match and cost share requirements and ensure that you'll be able to meet those requirements before you move forward with the proposal development and ultimately submission. Once you've identified relevant grant opportunities, you can start drafting your proposal. While the required components or sections of the full proposal will vary among funders, we will touch on some of the main components or sections that you may encounter. The first is typically an introduction or background. This should set the stage for what the issue or challenge is and how it can be addressed through you by awarding the funds. Next, you'll want to outline the goals, objectives, and deliverables for that project. This is essentially describing what is being proposed and should cover what you plan to do and any specific deliverables that will result from the award if funded. It's important to make sure that your goals and objectives are clear, concise, and realistic. You should also be careful to avoid having too many goals and objectives and make sure that they can be achieved within the award period. The introduction, background, goals, objectives, and deliverables should all relate back to the NOFO, RFP, and RFA and the priorities that were noted in them. Next, you'll need to outline the materials and methods used to achieve these goals or objectives and the identified deliverables. Make sure you provide more specific details on how you will meet the goals and objectives of your proposal to clearly convey to the reviewers that you're able to achieve them. This section often includes a timeline for the project as a whole. Next, you'll want to emphasize the why to reviewers. Why is the proposed effort or project important? Be sure to emphasize the benefit or impact of that project if awarded. This can be covered in the introduction and background as well, and ultimately you're trying to convince the reviewer that this is important and should be funded. Always think more broadly than the impact on your own organization or business. For example, we'll help protect public health and protect consumers by allowing more effective control over significant food safety hazards may be a more enticing impact to a funder than a statement like, will help my business comply with current food safety regulations. The last component of a proposal will touch on, the program or project evaluation. This will explain how you're going to measure the success of your program or project. Many funders are going to want to know that you have identified measurable ways to determine success and measure the impact of the funds awarded. You'll also be required to submit reports to the funder periodically with updates on the progress towards achieving your goals, objectives, and deliverables. This report will also seek to determine the challenges and changes to the project over time. Note that if an LOI is required, it will likely need to include a very brief overview of the components that we've identified here. The full proposal will then expand on each to provide the reviewers all the relevant information to understand the need and impact of the project or effort proposed. Another major component of your proposal will be the budget and the budget justification. When drafting a budget, you want to be as accurate as possible. So get quotes, do your research to get as close to actual costs as you can. You should also ensure that all the costs that are being budgeted are actually allowable expenses according to that NOFO, RFP, or RFA. Once funded, you may not have the flexibility to adjust the budget depending on the funding source. Even when adjustments are allowed, significant changes will likely require an official request be made and approvals obtained. In addition to a budget table outlining the various cost types or categories, such as salary, equipment, contractors, etc., and the dollar amount you allocate to each category, you'll also need to provide what we call a budget justification. This should provide as much detail as possible on what each line of your budget will be used for. In some cases, general language can be appropriate to give you flexibility to adapt as the project progresses. For example, something like purchase of materials necessary to support the whatever that project may be, which can include this, that, and, right? So keeping it general, but as specific as you can. Just keep in mind that the more accurate your budget is from the start, the less of a headache you will have processing reimbursements and spending down the awarded funds appropriately. Now that your proposal is drafted and hopefully reviewed a couple times, you're ready to submit it to the funder. The submission process will vary depending on that funder, but we'll quickly review some of the basic tips to consider when going to submit any proposal. Start by going through the NOFO, RFP, and RFA again to ensure that you have not missed any of the required elements in that proposal. Missing components, documents, and information will automatically exclude you from the review process. It's also good to practice trying to initiate that submission process in advance of the deadline to avoid any delays in delivery or receipt due to technical issues. Most funders are very strict with proposal deadlines, and submission even a minute after the deadline will likely not be considered. Most funders will confirm receipt of proposals, and giving yourself time between submission and actual deadline helps you ensure the proposal is received and you have time to resubmit if necessary. In some cases, funders may even inform applicants if missing paperwork, if there is missing paperwork, and allow you to resubmit as long as it's still before the deadline, while others won't start looking at proposals until the deadline has passed. After your submission, your proposal will undergo the funder's review process, which should be described in the no-fault RFA or RFP. It may also include a timeline for when to expect to hear from them regarding funding decisions. This review process typically takes up between 2 to 5 months, and once complete, the funder will typically reach out to inform applicants if they were selected for funding or not. If selected for funding, you'll work with the funder to process the award. They should inform you of what you will need from them to proceed. Once funding is available, you will be responsible for tracking progress, maintaining financial records and costs and expenses. In most cases, you will need to make payments and submit receipts for reimbursement, but you'll need to work with the funder to understand their process and their procedures. Financial and progress reports are typically needed to be submitted to the funder periodically, or at the very least at the end of the award period. Tracking your progress can also be an important tool for you to help determine when it would be necessary or appropriate to request a no-cost extension or an NCE. Once funds are spent and the project is complete, you'll likely need to submit a final report. It's important to ensure that throughout this whole process, you're following the guidelines for the award and meeting the required deadlines, especially if you wish to apply for additional funding through them in the future. Now that we've reviewed the grant writing process, I'll pass the screen to Barry to share some specific grant opportunities that may be of interest to you.
Thanks, Mike. Hi, everyone. My name is Barry Udelson. I'm the aquaculture specialist with New York Sea Grant. I'm going to review a variety of grants that may be applicable to New York businesses in the aquaculture and seafood sectors. Following this recording, there is going to be a document available that has everything discussed with the various links that we're going to talk about. Those links will take you to the websites where you can learn more details. There's going to be a mixture of grant and loan opportunities. It is important to remember that grants do come out at different times of the year. Usually they're annual, but some might be every other year. And ultimately, it's as funding is available. We would recommend that you go to these websites and you can actually sign up to receive an email notification for when the grants get released, so you're notified right away. As Kristen mentioned, sometimes they are distributed in various newsletters. So reviewing these in advance and brainstorming about what you could do when the grant becomes open is a great strategy. And also keep in mind that many may have a research or extension component. So remember, you can reach out to CCE or Sea Grant if you're interested in partnering. So here are 3 programs that are from New York State. The Regional Council Capital Program offers different types of funding, but not all of them are applicable to seafood and aquaculture. So below the name of a program, there might be a sub-bullet showing a specific grant that is applicable. In this case, it's the Empire State Development Fund. You'll see this repeated for several of the other programs that we show here. Next slide. So the New York Grown and Certified ITRD grant, this we wanted to highlight because it should be opening very soon. It's been delayed twice already, so it should be very soon to be coming out. And this is going to be a really great opportunity for many of you, since it's going to allow funding to be put toward infrastructure, technology, and research and development. They also state that many capital costs will be allowed. So this is unique in that not a lot of grant opportunities offer that. It does require a 10% match. And to be eligible, you have to be registered in the Grown and Certified program. This is a free program. It just requires you to fill out an application. And we recommend that you do that as soon as possible so that when the grant opens, you're already enrolled, and you can also be reviewing their request for proposal and start developing your plan now. Next slide. So there are several USDA sub-organizations that offer a mixture of grant and loan opportunities. These happen to be from the Agriculture Marketing Service. We'll walk through a couple of the different sub-organizations, but as you can see, these 4 highlighted, these sub-bullets, they're highlighting the ones that are more applicable to the seafood and aquaculture industry. But there's many other programs that are not specific, that would not include those. Next slide. So another branch is the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. This offers several research grants that are meant for industry and farmer research. Some of these are helpful to partner with extension agents. They do depend on the specific program, but that would be outlined in the RFP. Next slide. And a third branch of the USDA is the Farm Service Agency. They actually offer funding in the form of loans, supposedly at lower interest rates than what you might get at a bank. The Farm Storage Facility Loan Program, I put as a different link because this is not actually found on the same page as the other loans, but that looks very interesting and might offer the ability. It has some different requirements that some of these other loans don't. And the last branch of the USDA funding opportunities is through the Rural Development Program. These links are specific to the programs offered in New York. I also wanted to mention that everyone's definition of rural might be a little different. I believe that the way they define it is that in a city with less than 50,000 residents, there is a feature on their website that allows you to put in an address to see if it qualifies. I did this for Riverhead, New York, and it did qualify. So I think most of Long Island would fall under this, even though we might not consider it very rural. And so some other grant resources, these are opportunities offered through NOAA. So these are some that are specific to aquaculture and specific to fisheries. Some of these do overlap. For instance, the Saltonstall Kennedy or SK, that is applicable to both. NOAA also offers some financial service programs that can also be looked into as potential opportunities. And these last opportunities are from various organizations. The Northeast Regional Aquaculture Center, often referred to as NRAC, they offer very practical research opportunities that they want industry members working on. The caveat to this is they want you to be partnered with someone from another Northeast state. So sometimes that makes logistics a little bit more challenging, but it is a potential opportunity. The CPACT is a private organization that offers grants as well. And then we have the Northeast branch of the Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education, that's commonly referred to as SARE. They offer various grant opportunities, and those are typically every year as well. And then lastly, we didn't have it listed here, but Kristen mentioned it. There's the general grant website, grants.gov. This contains a list of pretty much most of these grants that I spoke about, but it also lists every federal grant. So it can be a little daunting when you search that website. You will need to select the proper filters to find the ones that are applicable to you, but it's another resource to visit. So again, we recommend you visit these links, sign up for the notifications so you are notified when they become available, and check them all out. Everyone's needs are different. You may find some that are more or less applicable to you. And if you're interested in some that have a research or extension component, reach out to us and we might be able to partner with you on them.
All right, thanks, Barry. So that concludes the review of grants and grant writing. We want to take a break right now for some questions that are related to what you've heard now, the grants. I know I saw one in the chat from Julie. I think Barry addressed some of that, but Julie, the reason we had this was for that New York Grown and Certified program, because that's going to be very relevant for our New York businesses. And our seafood businesses are eligible for that. So that one is one we highly recommend, keep an eye out for and look into, because it does allow for that infrastructure development. Other than that, there's a lot of others that Barry mentioned and just kind of perusing ones that are relevant to whatever project or effort you're looking to get funded. Are there any other questions about grants? Feel free to raise your hand, type it in the chat.
I don't know how to raise my hand. Can I just ask a question?
Yep, go ahead.
I tried to go on to the New York Grown at www.certified.ny.gov. It's coming up, server not found. Did I write down the wrong thing?
Not sure, but we'll check and we can send you the link to register for the program. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, we'll send you the right link in the chat. Barry, can you look that up?
Thank you.
All right, Barry's working on that. Any other questions? All right, and thank you, Kevin. Put a link to the USDA Rural Development Interactive Map if you want to look and see and make sure you're in a rural area. As Barry mentioned, those rural areas are not necessarily what you might think. And I will reiterate on there, some of these grants might look more research focused, but you can definitely, look up, partner with New York Sea Grant, CCE Suffolk, universities across the state to get engaged in working with researchers to do projects that are directly applicable to you as a farm, a fisherman, or a business, right? There's often a good component to and adds a lot to a grant when they see that you're actually working with the industry and developing applied research that can support enhance our local economies. All right, last minute for questions. Feel free, send them in the chat. Looks like Barry's got the certified New York Cronin certified link in the chat where you can actually access that application to get into that program. All right. All right, so next I'm going to pass the screen to Brenda Zhang with the Small Business Development Center at Stony Brook, and Brenda will discuss loans and the services of the Small Business Development Center.
Thank you, Mike. Let me share my screen. So can you all see my screen?
Yep, just need presentation mode. Perfect.
Okay, all right, good. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brenda Zhang, and I joined SBDC Stony Brook as a business advisor in 2019. So I myself is a New York State certified public accountant and also a former small business owner. I bring expertise in accounting, finance, online retails, and also the government regulation of food manufacturing and food services in New York State. SBDC stands for Small Business Development Center. In New York State, we have 20 SBDC centers for now. Located in Stony Brook, our center is under the auspices of the United States SBA, the Small Business Administration, the New York State, and also the Stony Brook University. By providing free and confidential business counseling services and training, we help local small business owners and entrepreneurs to start and grow their businesses. So here is a list of the key services we offer. We offer one-on-one business counseling service to our clients, funding assistance, market research, training and workshops, certification and government contracting assistance, and also the disaster recovery support. For funding assistance, we can help small businesses to understand their financing options, provide guidance on preparing for loan application, secure grants, and also funding other financial supports. We can also help with the business plan development and financial planning. For training and workshop, our center regularly offers seminars and workshops on various business-related topics. For example, marketing, financial literacy, and also the digital transformation and government regulation. For more details, you can visit our website, Stony Brook SBDC. So from here, under workshops, if you go to calendar, you will find what we're going to offer. Most of the time, it's a webinar, workshop. You can register directly from here. Under workshop, you can also go to the workshop videos. So here, this is a long list of the video recordings of workshops we gave before, which you can find all different types of business-related topics. So as I mentioned, there are 20 SBDC centers in New York State. You can visit the New York State SBDC and locate a center near you. you may register and schedule a one-on-one meeting appointment with them directly. So the first half of today's workshop will focus on grants available for small businesses. While grant is a valuable resource, sometimes you may also need to consider other financing options. Common small business financing options includes term loans, business line of credit, equipment financing, invoice financing, commercial real estate loans, and the SBA loans. Unlike the grants that we have already discussed, which typically do not require any repayment, business loans do require repayments of both the principal and interest. Also, each of these loan options come with different eligibility requirements, interest rate, and repayment terms. To decide which loan option is good for your business, you need to evaluate your business needs, your financial situation, and also how quickly you need the funding. So before introduce the SBA loan programs, I do want to spend a few minutes just to clarify the difference between a business loan and a business line of credit. So first, both of this can serve as a valuable tool to help to propel your business forward. However, we need to understand the difference so you can determine when to pursue a business loan and when a line of credit might be a better option. A business loan is a traditional form of debt financing. With a loan, you receive a lump sum of money upfront, which you repay over a fixed term with a set monthly payments. So each payment will include a portion of the principal and also a portion of the interest, which represent the cost of the borrowing activity. We already know that last week the Fed reduced the federal fund rates by 50 basis points. So because of that, the cost of borrowing money is currently lower compared with a year ago. One key feature of the business loan is the amortization schedule, which allows the borrower to estimate your repayment costs in advance. So here is an online tool that you can use. From this page, you can put in the loan amount you want to borrow, for example, $100,000, and also the term of the loan, for example, 10 years, and also the interest rate. Let's put 7%. And the software will help to calculate the monthly payment and also a detailed amortization schedule. So you know how much you need to pay back the bank and also what is the total interest cost of this loan activity. A line of credit, sometimes also called a revolving line of credit, is another type of debt instrument that offers a flexible access to a fund. So with this line of credit, instead of receiving a lump sum, it provides you, the borrower, with access to a specified amount of money, which you can draw as needed. This option is particularly beneficial for seasonal small business and companies with short-term funding needs. For example, if you need to cover payroll expense before your business receives payment from customers, you can draw from the line of credit to cover the payroll and later repay the borrowed amount after you collect your receivables from your customers. The interest of the line credit will be only charged for the amount you draw and for the period of time you use it. It is important to note that most of the time, the bank prefer periodical repayment of the line of credit rather than continually use the full available amount without arrest. So this is why, it is referred as a revolving. So you borrow, you pay back, you borrow again, you pay back again. So when decide which type of debt instrument is best for your business, it might be a good idea just to schedule appointment with SBDC to review your financial position and also discuss the purpose of the fund you need. So now let's focus on the SBA loans. First of all, there has been a lot of confusion as to what SBA loans are and how they work. In general, SBA does not directly provide any funding to small business. They simply improve the odds for small businesses getting the funding they need by guarantee a loan. The SBA loan application process can be lengthy and confusing. Because of this, we highly suggest you work with SBDC or any other business consulting providers to better understand the process. The eligibility requirement for SBA loans can vary depending on the specific programs. However, there are standard criteria that all applicants must meet. First of all, the type of the business must be eligible. For example, lending companies and gambling businesses are typically not eligible for SBA loans. Second, the business must be a for-profit entity that is legally registered and operating in the United States. Additionally, the business must qualify as a small business as defined by SBA. So before applying, you must also have sought other financing from other resources and being denied. Applicants cannot be delinquent on any existing government debt, and the business owner cannot be on probation or anything like that. And finally, you must demonstrate that the business has the ability to repay the loan back to the bank. There are many SBA loan programs out there, and the two most important ones are the SBA 7A and SBA 504 loans. Both of these loans can go up to $5 million. The SBA 7A loan is structured for general business purposes, such as business acquisition, working capital, real estate purchase, and construction. The 7A loan is just between you, the small business, and a bank. The down payment can be as low as 10%, and the interest rate is usually the current prime rates plus certain points. The point spreads is usually between 2.25 to 2.75%, which varies depending on the bank you work with and also the credibility of the business and the business owner. The SBA 504 loan is specifically structured for business looking to purchase either a commercial real estate or large manufacturing equipment. The loan term can be up to 25 years. 3 parties get involved in the 504 loan process: a small business owner, a bank, and also the CDC, the Certified Development Company. If a 504 loan gets approved, the bank will issue 50% of the total loan amount. The CDC will provide 40%, and the business owner needs to put down 10% equity contribution. So with this low down payment structure, you as a business owner can keep more cash in your pocket for other business use. If the loan is for a commercial real estate purposes, the borrower needs to occupy at least 51% of the space in order to be qualified for a 504 loan program. Not all banks carry SBA loans. To find a SBA certified lender, you can use the lender matching program from the SBA website. So from here, click the find lender and provide some basic information of your business. The system will try to match you with the banks available to process the loan that you're looking for. So another option is you can contact SBDC. We can help to connect you with a qualified local bank. The underwriting requirement for SBA loans may vary by lenders, but there are some common criteria. So in general, a strong personal credit score is essential for the loan application. While some lenders may work with startup companies, in general, the applicants need to be in business for at least 2 years to qualify. The business must demonstrate solid revenue and cash flow projections. Also, for larger loan amount, usually over $150,000, a collateral will be required to secure the loan. Additionally, the lender will need detailed information on how the loan will be used. Give me a sec. I'm trying to open a file. All right, so this is a sample of SBA 7A loan application checklist. Some lenders may have its own version, but the checkpoints are similar. If you need a copy of the list, please send a message to me or to Mike. We can email this to you. To meet all these application requirements, besides the official documents, it's recommended to present a comprehensive business plan for your loan application. This is especially important for startups which do not have a lot of financial history from the business. So what is a business plan? A business plan is a document that defines in details of a company's objective and how it plans to achieve the goals. Both startups and established companies need a business plan. Today, what we're talking here is to use a business plan to secure lending from a financial institution. But a business plan can also be used internally just to streamline the business operation and also to keep the management team on the same page. A business plan should include some key contents. One of them is executive summary. And you also need an overview of the company's structure, a description of what you sell, product or services, and most importantly, a breakdown of how much you will need and the purpose of the business loan. A thorough business plan may be up to 30 or 40 pages long, And because of this, the one-page executive summary is always the most important part of a business plan. It is basically the elevator pitch for your lending opportunity. So most of the time, the loan officer gets a general idea about the business after just reading the executive summary. They will have a feeling whether or not the loan application will go through. One of the service SBDC offer is to assist our client with business plan development, including the financial projections. So there are a variety of tools available for this purpose, and Life Plan is one of them. The Life Plan is a comprehensive and user-friendly online software designed to help create solid business plans. It features a built-in template that simplifies the whole process. As we said, the financial projection is the crucial part for the business plan. For this, in Life Plan, after you put in your estimated revenue, expense, and tax related to the business operation, the software will automatically generate key financial statements, including the profit and loss statement, the balance sheet, and also the cash flow statements. Clients of our SBDC centers will get access to Life Plan for free for 60 days to develop your business plan. And our business advisors will definitely help you, in the whole process. So we have briefly covered the types of business loans with a focus on the SBA loan eligibility and also the application process. It is important to keep in mind that the lenders typically evaluate loan requests based on the 5 C's of credit: the character, capacity, capital, collateral, and conditions. As business owners, we can also use these criteria to evaluate the financial health of our businesses and whether or not we're ready to, apply for a business loan. So in closing, the mission of our SBDC is to support local small businesses to start and grow their business. We are dedicated to assist you with your loan application and any other business challenges you may face. Here are the contact informations. Please feel free to reach us with any questions. We'll try our best to support. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brenda. All right. So I encourage everybody to take a look. We gave you a lot of information, and the process is quite complicated, but keep in mind the small business development centers are there as a resource and to support, and they're all across the state. So, take advantage of that. And their services are, for the most part, free. I don't know if they...
Correct.
Yep.
Yep, it is free.
Yep. So take advantage of that. I've put a link in the chat. That link is to the outline for today's webinar. It has all the active links. It has the various different grant opportunities. It has the link to go to the Grown and Certified application to become a member. Before we end, we've got a couple minutes. Are there any questions about loans, business plans, the services of the SBDC? Feel free to put them in the chat or unmute to ask. So before we wrap up, I am going to put another link in the chat This link is going to be to a very short survey on today's webinar. It'll also help us gauge if there's other topics or things we missed today that you'd like to learn more about. Julie, I've already contacted Ag and Markets to get an answer to your question, so we'll follow up once we've got or heard back from them. My guess is that you can apply for both businesses since they are separate, but I don't know for sure. So we'll figure that out before we follow up.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, everybody. So we do ask that you take that evaluation in the chat, although once the Zoom window closes, it should open up in a browser window. But if there's no more questions, we thank you all for participating today. And feel free to reach out to any of us at New York Sea Grant, CCE, and the Small Business Development Center at Stony Brook or any of your local centers with any questions. Thank you.